Genesis chapter 49. Genesis chapter 49, verse 19, as we look this morning at Gad. Genesis 49, verse 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Gad is a troop, a tribe of warriors. One of the cliches you hear in life sometimes is that you win some, you lose some. And Gad's prophecy, much in the same way, is that there are times that he'll be attacked, but there will be times that he fights back. A troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Ultimately, he would get victory, though he was in for a life of battles. That's what we want to talk about today with Gad, is a life of battles. Number one, Gad the troop. Gad the troop. We've done this with each one, so let's turn back to Genesis chapter 30. Genesis chapter 30. Leah had conceived 6 sons, given 6 sons to Jacob. And then we began looking last week that Rachel, in jealousy, decides to give her handmaid to Jacob and to have children with her, and he does. The language that Rachel used when she had Dan was that, God is judged in my favor. When she had Naphtali, that we haven't gotten to yet, but his name deals with wrestling and prevailing. That obviously did not sit well with Leah. In Genesis chapter 30, in verse number 9, it says, when Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son, and Leah said, a troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. So the name Gad in reference to troop, and Jacob is playing off of that language as he gives his prophecy in Genesis chapter 49. Now, do the words from Rachel aggravate her sister? There's obviously still that rivalry there, right, where they're fighting for Jacob's love. And Leah realizing that she has left off bearing, she's no longer bearing sons, and that Rachel has given her handmaid, and Jacob's starting to have children with her. She's like, oh no, we got to do something about that, and takes her handmaid. This story doesn't get much better, right? It kind of devolves a little bit, but her handmaid Zilpah does have a son, and his name is Gad, which means troop. Gad the troop. Now let's look at the prophecy that Jacob gave, because it speaks there about a troop overcoming him, but him overcoming at the last. So number 2, let's look at Gad the attacked. And then when we get to number 3, we'll talk about Gad the attacker. So we'll talk about the overcome and the overcomer. Gad the attacked. According to Jacob's prophecy, he would be the subject of many attacks and many battles. Now, part of that is a natural outflowing of circumstances. Part of that is a natural outflowing of where Gad would ultimately end up as a tribe. Now, if you'll turn to Numbers chapter 32, take a little walk down memory lane in history here to see what became later of the tribe of Gad. In Numbers chapter 32, and verse number 1, Numbers 32, verse 1, it says, now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that, behold, the place was a place for cattle. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and said unto the princes of the congregation, saying, Adaroth, Dibon, and Jazer, and Nimrah, Heshbon, Elealeh, Shebam, Nebo, and Beon. Even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore, said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Now, what does that mean? When Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh, before they cross over the Jordan River to occupy the land of promise, those 2.5 tribes, they actually see the land that's on the east side of Jordan, and they're like, hey guys, this is actually pretty prime land over here. So they go to Moses and like, listen, we've spied out this part of the land, and this looks like it's great for cattle, and wouldn't you know it, we got plenty of cattle. This would actually be a good land. What would you say, Moses, if we just kind of took this land here, and verse 5, bring us not over Jordan? Like, we'd actually be real happy and content to just stay here on this side. So, the east side of Jordan. Now, obviously, verse number 6, Moses said to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? Now, Moses, the way that it looks like he first interpreted that was like, no, hang on a minute. We are just now to the brink. We are just now getting toward the Jordan, and we're getting ready to go over into this land and occupy it and fight the battles that are necessary, right? It's going to be war to drive out the inhabitants of the land. And Moses is like, your brethren are going to go to war, and you're just going to hang out? You're just going to sit here on this side of Jordan? Verse 7, wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them. Man, you guys are going to be discouraging to people that your brethren are getting ready to fight battles for the land God gave us. Now they come back and they say, now wait a minute. We're not saying we're not going to go fight. We're going to go help in the fight. In fact, jump down to verse number 16. Verse 16, it says, they came near unto him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our cattle and cities for our little ones, but we ourselves will go ready, armed before the children of Israel, till we have brought them unto their place. And our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because the inhabitants of the land. We will not return unto our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side of Jordan or forward, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this side of Jordan eastward. Like, we're going to go and we're going to fight. We're here. We're going to build some fenced cities for our people so that they're safe. But Moses, we assure you, we're going to go help. We're going to fight in the battles with you. This is the famous passage here now in verse 20 where Moses says unto them, if ye will do this thing, if ye will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord, until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterward ye shall return, and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Right? You've probably heard that verse before, but maybe had forgotten or never actually looked at the context in which it was given. It was a promise that these tribes made that, listen, we will go and fight with you. We won't leave you to do this on your own. We will go armed before you guys, with you all, to fight these battles. We'll make sure that you get your inheritance as long as we get ours as well. So Moses does agree. He agrees to that as long as they will go and they will fight. So that's what happens with Reuben and Gad, our lesson today, our subject today, and half the tribe of Manasseh. You say, what's the point of all that? Well, have you looked at a map, right? What does all this mean? What is the issue? Well, you look at that and you see, okay, where are they now? You look at a map and you see the land of Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh now being on the east side of Jordan. What does that mean? That means that these guys are the ones that are in prime spot for cattle, right? It also means they are in prime spot when wars come. Guess who gets hit first? Guess who gets attacked first? Turn to Amos chapter 1. Amos chapter 1. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Amos chapter 1, verse number 13. For thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of the children of Ammon, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they have ripped up the women with child of Gilead, that they might enlarge their border. When the Ammonites wanted to expand their land, guess what they went for? Well, do you remember where the Ammonites were at? They were on the east side of the Jordan River. How about 2 Kings chapter 10? 2 Kings chapter 10. This is talking about Hazael. 2 Kings chapter 10 and verse 32. In those days the Lord began to cut Israel short, and Hazael smote them in all the coasts of Israel. Well, who's at the edge? Who's at the edge? The people that wanted to settle on the east side of Jordan. From Jordan eastward, listen to verse 33, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, the Reubenites, the Manassites, from Aror, which is by the river Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. It's a product of where they ended up, right? You say, is there anything wrong with them wanting to stay on the east side of Jordan? Really, no, right? All of that land belonged to Israel. It was good for cattle. They wanted it. They were willing to help their brethren fight and occupy the land. We're not saying that there's anything really inherently wrong with what they did, but you know, though there may not have been anything wrong with it, choices have consequences, right? Decisions have repercussions. They wanted to be on the east side of Jordan. That means, you know, you're the first one attacked when Syria comes, when Ammon comes, when the Assyrians come later in the Old Testament history. It was a natural product of where they lived. Gad was in for a lifetime of battles. And some of that just had to do with, that's where they live, right? Now, there are some times that, you know, decisions you make, you're like, well, let's just look at it from the physical side, right? Places that you live. You know, we live here in Missouri. You know, one thing we don't have to worry about where we live? Hurricanes, right? We're not by an ocean. We don't have to worry about hurricanes. You know, other people have to worry about hurricanes, right? People that are down toward the South Atlantic, right? And more towards Central America and Florida and the coasts and those kind of things. You know, is it because they're more sinful than we are? Is it because they're worse people than we are? And no. But there are some things that based on where you live, you're going to have problems that maybe other people don't have. And that is what happened with the tribe of Gad. You know, in this world, we didn't get to pick the time period in which we live in, right? We live in 21st century America. We don't live in Civil War era America. We don't live in colonial era America. We live in the here and now, and we didn't get to pick that. But based on the day and age in which we live, we've got battles to fight that maybe some previous generations didn't have. There are struggles that we have that are just a product of where we live, right? We just have to know that. We have to be prepared that there are likely attacks that we have to deal with that maybe others didn't. Gad's going to have to worry about attacks that maybe some others don't. If you've got some of those bordering countries like Hazael and Syria and, you know, up toward Damascus, they want to expand their land a little bit. Well, guess what? That's going to start to nudge into the northeast corner of Israel's land. And who has to fight those battles? The people that are on the east side of Jordan. Based on your surroundings, based on the decisions that you make, you might have battles. From a moral perspective, right? From the more philosophical perspective, Christians have to be concerned with the decisions they make, right? The choices that we make. If you've got, if you're a Christian and your habit is to live as close to that worldly line as possible, that's going to bring troubles with it, right? That's going to bring battles to fight. Now, everybody's got battles, right? Being in the interior, being landlocked in Israel doesn't mean you don't have problems. It doesn't mean you don't have trouble. Everybody's got a war to fight. Everyone has a battle to drive out the inhabitants of their land, right? So everybody's got problems. Everybody's got battles and fights. But Gad, even when they fight the battles that are necessary, driving out the inhabitants of their land, they still, for the duration, have to worry about other enemies that maybe the landlocked tribe in the heart of Israel didn't have to worry about, at least not yet. Decisions that you make, borders and boundaries that you choose, be thoughtful of those things. You may set yourself up for the need to fight harder battles than necessary, more battles than necessary, right? Gad chose to live on the edge. That came with risks. It came with troubles, and a troop shall overcome him. There would be times that Gad would lose. There would be times that they would be defeated. They would lose some battles. There were times that it was too much, that it was overwhelming, and that he would be overcome. Not ultimately, not finally, but you win some, you lose some. And Gad ultimately had that as far as just a natural outflow of where he lived. He was going to have battles to fight. Again, listen, not the mistake. There are battles to fight anyway. And wise decision making is important. That will not secure you a life that is free from battles. It won't secure you a life that's free from struggles. But if you set up the wrong boundaries, you could set yourself up for more troubles than maybe that you wanted or intended. So Gad would struggle with that. Now a troop would overcome him, but he should overcome at the last. So let's talk about Gad the attacker, or Gad the overcomer. He would overcome at the last. Now Gad would become a tribe that was known for skill and skill in war. Deuteronomy chapter 33, if you turn there. Deuteronomy chapter 33, this is some of the last words of Moses before he goes and before Joshua takes over to lead them into the land. Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse number 20. Deuteronomy 33:20, it says, "And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head." Okay. That's not talking about a physical crown on a head. That's talking about the crown of the head. Gad will scalp you, right? Gad's like a lion, and he's ferocious, and he'll rip your arm off, and he'll scalp you, and he's a fighter. He is a warrior. Dad was right? When Jacob said a troop would overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Gad's going to fight back. Now, he's going to have battles to fight. He's going to have wars and troubles, but he's going to show some resistance. He's not going to take it lying down. He is going to fight, and he's not going to lose all the time. He's going to win. He's going to fight some battles, and he's actually going to prevail and win as well. And Moses is able to see that, and Moses in his word of prophecy, talks about Gad being, they're tough, like a lion, right, that tears the arm with the crown of the head, someone that'll rip your arm off or scalp you. He'll fight you. In 1 Chronicles chapter number 12, 1 Chronicles chapter 12, you got to know that when you come and fight against Gad, they're not pushovers. They'll show some resistance. They'll fight back. That is the habit, right, of an overcomer. we realize that there are attacks that come. But you know what? We resist, right? When the devil comes against us, the Bible talks about resisting, standing steadfast in the faith. Resist the devil and having him flee from us. Don't just take it, right? The attacks that we see in this world and the troubles that we have and the things that we struggle with, fight back against those things. Stand, try to be faithful, try to serve and be an overcomer. You come to the book of Revelation and like all 7 of those churches that are mentioned there with all the different things that were going on, he talks about the overcomers that were in each place. Thankful to know that in each church there were overcomers and there were promises to those that would overcome. 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse number 8, of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David into the hold of the wilderness men of might, men of war, fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as the roes upon the mountains. And then he goes in to mention them. Mentions Ezer the first, Obadiah the second, Eliab the third, Mishmana the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the 10th, Machbenai the 11th. These were the sons of Gad, captains of the host. One of the least was over 100, and the greatest over 1,000. These are they that went over Jordan in the first month, when it had overflown all its banks. I'm telling you, these guys will fight. And an overflowing bank, an overflowing river wasn't going to stop them. Like, it's going to talk to you about their courage and how quick they were and how fierce and ferocious they were. They knew war. They knew how to handle sword and shield. And they rallied to David's cause. And he talks about these men. And when the Gadites came, these weren't just guys that you could count on. These were guys that you put in charge. And it might have been 100 and it might have been 1,000, but they were men of war, right? Ferocious warriors. And Dad saw that all those years before. He's going to lose some battles. And part of that is a consequence of life and where they chose to live and the boundaries upon which they lived. But I tell you what, they won't take it lying down. And they may lose some, but they're going to win some. And they are going to overcome at the last. They're going to be people that are reliable. They're going to be people that are confident in war and in their skills. And they will fight back. We should put up an effort in the struggles and the trials that we have and the temptations that we fight. Because of the power of the Holy Spirit that is within us, we actually have the ability, the Christian has the ability to overcome. We mentioned before that greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. In 1 John chapter 5, it talks about overcoming. Whosoever believeth that Jesus is the Christ is born of God, and everyone that loveth him that begat, loveth him also that is begotten of him. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. And this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. For whoever is born of God overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Who is he that overcometh the world? But he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God. That's 1 John 5, verses 1 through 5. The Christian has within him the ability to overcome. Did you know that when temptation hits us, we do not have to every time lose that battle? Did you know that? We actually have the power within us for resistance to overcome. Now, do we always? No, we don't. But a Christian does have the ability, and as we develop in the faith and as we mature in the faith and we grow in grace, we learn more about leaning upon the Lord Jesus Christ, our reliance upon the Spirit, and that struggle between the Spirit and flesh. We actually get better, right? We're actually supposed to make progress. That's what's called sanctification, where you make progress in the growth of the Christian life, and you actually start to win more than you lose, right? You actually win more battles than you lose. You say, I'm not there yet. I'm not there all the time either. But the potential is there. And we've got to learn how to lean into that. We've got to learn how to secure a solid faith and trust, growing in grace, reliance upon the Holy Spirit, and belief that, you know what, through God's power within us, we can resist the devil and have him flee from us. We can resist temptation. Gad is going to lose some battles. He's going to win a lot of battles too, because he's not going to take things lying down. He is not going to just, not fight back. Fight back, right? Resist the devil and he'll flee from you. Learn to stand up to temptation. Learn to stand up to those things and look for victory. Gad's looking for victory. And though a troop overcomes him, he will overcome at the last. Now, with just a minute left, let's turn to Joshua chapter 22. Joshua chapter 22. In case you had any doubt, we read Numbers chapter 32, the agreement, right? The agreement that Gad and Reuben and half the tribe of Manasseh made with Moses, right? You give us this land here, we'll fight. We will fight. We promise you. Moses said, okay, but if you don't, be sure your sin will find you out. How did that actually happen? How did that actually work out? How did that actually play out? Because Moses dies before they go into the land. Moses dies before it's time to fight these battles. Well, let me tell you, Gad came through. Joshua chapter 22, verse 1. Verse 1 says, Then Joshua called the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, and he said unto them, Ye have kept all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and have obeyed my voice in all that I have commanded you. Ye have not left your brethren these many days unto this day, but have kept the charge of the commandment of the Lord your God. Now the Lord your God hath given rest unto your brethren, as he promised them. Therefore now return ye and get you to your tents, unto the land of your possession, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave you, on the other side of Jordan. If you had any doubt, right, amongst all the things that we said about them and their warrior-like nature and their ferocity, and just know that the Bible gives us closure there to that story. They came through. They did their part, and Joshua recognizes when all the battles were done, thank you. You kept your word. You kept the promise that you made and the commandment that Moses had given you. You can go home now. You can go back to the east side of Jordan. There's warnings that come with that. Don't forget, you're going to kind of be off there on an island almost and separated. So here's some things that you need to remember. But you kept your word. And you could rely on Gad to be there to fight and to resist and to put forth a strong effort. Are they going to win every time? No, they're not going to win every time. But they're not going to take it lying down. They will put forth an effort. And God help us to do the same, right? We're not going to win every time. Hopefully, as we grow in grace, we start to win more than we lose. But we learn by faith that we actually have the potential to win. We have the potential to overcome, to be an overcomer. And so we trust the Lord to give us strength and grace, help us grow, lean upon Him, and start to win more battles than we lose. All right, let's pray. God, we're thankful for your word. We're thankful for the testimony